We are back recording in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Welcome to the Restoration Group podcast, where we are sometimes silly, but always serious about investing in Oklahoma City leaders who desire to integrate their Christian faith into the business. I am your host, Clay Steves, and today I am joined by a good friend and our, distinguished guest, Dr. Jason Emerson. Dr. Emerson has been married for 28 years, and we should just pause there as the highlight of the bio, because give me some right here. That is something I desire in my life, is to achieve those type of milestones. So incredible.
Thank you.
Jason has 3 daughters, went to medical school at OSU in Tulsa, OSU up in T-Town, did his residency here in Oklahoma City. Sports medicine fellowship, a little extra training on the sports side down in Tampa. Good spot. Good spot, right on the water, right? Yep. You see a lot at TGH.
The kids enjoyed we were close to Disney.
I'm sure the kids did love that aspect. And then in 2008, Jason has founded and started his practice, Midtown Orthopedics and Sports Medicine, which is still your practice there on 13th and Hudson in the old classic doctor's building,
yes.
right there.
Art Deco.
That's right, little Art Deco. That's right, here in Oklahoma City. Jason has also done medical mission trips in Nigeria. You've done 75 days total worth of trips.
Yes, there was a 45-day trip and a 30-day trip.
Goodness, those are long trips. So Jason,
in a country like that, eventually you can take enough snacks and food, but eventually at 30 days you got to eat the local food.
Yeah.
So
your body better adjust.
It gets real.
If it gets real, I believe it. Well, Jason, welcome to the show. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Great to be here. Glad we're not, we are both morning people. So this is not considered early for us.
No, this is actually late. Like we're like, I think we're both multiple connects and meetings in, and many people might be just getting first meeting of the day. That's right. Okay, Jason, let's start with Midtown Ortho. Tell us about your practice, the starting of it, why you started it, why you're passionate about it.
Perfect. Don't want to present myself as some cavalier maverick out there, but at the time when I graduated from residency, most people in orthopedics in Oklahoma City had their own, would join a private practice. Mm-hmm. And I kind of just thought that Hillary Clinton might get elected, some national health care stuff coming in. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to beat everybody to the punch. I'm going to go onto the hospital.
You go be an employee side?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of early for a lot of people to be an employed physician as an orthopedic surgeon.
Okay.
So that was a little bit different. I certainly enjoyed my time at St. Anthony's with the residency, passionate about educating, helping other people come up in the practice. And I really enjoyed that time. But after a little bit, as the country then started going the other direction.
One of the swings, the American pendulum swings that we go through. Yes.
And then I just decided, you know what? I think I'll start a private practice. So for some reason, I've gone against the flow every time. That's not in my nature, how I always like to do things. But for some reason, I've been called the opposite direction both times.
And so as the we'll say the orthopedic community, as physicians began to become like in larger percentages shifting towards going into employment, you shifted the other way and went and moved from employment to founding your own private practice.
Yes, which is great because most physicians don't have a business degree.
This is a true story.
Signing up for loans and becoming a CEO of a company without any business classes is a great way to do it.
So what? Maybe let's go to that season. Let's go to that transition season, because you're describing, you really went from practicing medicine, and I'm not going to say only, but that was like the alpha primary, to now balancing, I am a businessman and I am a practicing physician. And I've got to now balance both of these things as mattering, because if I just practice medicine, my business may not survive. If I just cared about the business, I may compromise it. So how did you begin to maybe bring the business side up to match your already experience and training on the medicine side?
That is certainly something that goes into the equation. We start out, and in the beginning, I was glad to have a safety net of a hospital. for an HR department. I'm not making decisions on hiring and firing people. So it was, I did think it was a beautiful way to start, that I could focus on orthopedics, treating patients, doing my surgeries. And the first year, that was the primary focus. And I was very pleased that that was my decision. Then you start to mix a little bit of business into it. You start watching how things are going on. You become intrigued by it, interested in it. And then kind of the third year, it seems like you put things together. And then physician mentality of things, I think, could I do this better on my own without any training? So surely that would work.
I don't think that's just a physician mentality, but I think it doesn't shock me that many physicians have that potential mentality. Yes.
When I look at my brother's in orthodontics, and dental school actually has some business classes, at least at Ole Miss, incorporated into their training.
Oh, really?
In medical school, zero, at least at my school.
Interesting.
And so we learned to be, I think, wonderful physicians, but not much business, not much business knowledge at all.
So then how did you, once you started the practice, and of course you'd had exposure, like you said, over kind of those first few years, like, how do you start to get the business acumen? It's the school of hard knocks, I'm sure, but how do you actually balance that?
You want to know where I graduated with my business classes?
Yes, I do.
You know a guy named John Tapper?
I do not know John Tapper.
He does bar rescue on TV.
Bar rescue.
Yeah. So if a restaurant or a bar is about to go under in 6 months, he goes in to save the place. So I took notes on those episodes.
That's fantastic. I learned from the prophet, like Marcus Lemonis, the Camping World founder.
Level. That's like masters.
Oh, that is?
Yes.
Okay, I'm glad I started at the master's level. No wonder I didn't know what they were talking about. As a history degree, history major myself.
So I took notes and kind of incorporated some of that. There were some certainly learning experiences, and probably some business mistakes that other people would have recognized a lot earlier than I did. It's kind of interesting in the business model. They had to simplify it for me and say, Jason, you're seeing some symptoms here. You're used to in medicine, you hear this, you find a diagnosis, and then you treat that. I don't know why in the business world I kind of just saw symptoms and didn't try to, when I'm like, oh, this is actually kind of like being a doctor. Here's the problem. Here's the diagnosis. Sometimes I have to have somebody help me make that diagnosis. And then, so when they matched it up and I was like, okay, my brain works this way and I understand that process. And I think that helped a little bit.
That's actually a helpful and insightful, I think, parallel for me as you're talking about it. Because what you did is you began to take familiar principles and apply them in both places, right? Like I'm having this, make up a symptom, maybe a challenge in staffing, or maybe even systems at your office, and begin to go to the root thing that actually could be causing those, the same way you would when a patient walks in and says, my shoulder hurts. You're not going to focus just on the shoulder hurting. You're going to go to all the things that could cause an effect, that shoulder to be hurting.
Absolutely. And so it's really helped.
Jason, one of the things I've had the privilege of knowing you. Okay, so you started, when was it? 08, 07?
2008.
2008. So, I've known you since pre-then, right? So, like, we first met in the mid 2000s. We won't say how old we were then. We'll just say that's when we met. One of the things I've admired about you is you didn't say this, but you talked about the educating residents, and you talked about your enjoyment of that piece. Teaching and educating takes time. Teaching and educating takes patience. And that's a word I would actually attribute to you. My experience of you over the years is that you are a patient man, whether it's with reps, because I'm confident lots and lots of reps show up at your office, whether it's with staff, whether it's teaching residents, whether it's with patients. Like even as I listen to patient testimonials on your website, in preparation for our conversation, listening to them talk about how you listened to them, went through a process with them, stayed connected with them, those pieces, like I'm going to say it's the fruit of patience often coming out of you. My experience and interpretation of you. How has leading your business and practice, how has doing that shaped you into a more patient man? So like when you went to the business side of it, or I mean, you can flip it if you want. You can say, no, it hasn't made me more patient, Clay. It's actually made it harder. But what has that done with like maybe that patience, impatience attribute about you that I observe? How has running your own business affected that? Maybe that's a better question.
We may have to go back to the question for just a little bit and me hear it again, because you've thrown me a little curveball.
Yes.
When we're talking about Midtown Orthopedics as a business and you talked about patients, I thought you were talking about PATIENTS.
No.
And
My bad.
now I thought we were talking about how did I get patients at my practice?
Referral network.
Oh, great.
You did like events.
So you're talking about the other,
I am talking about the fruit of the Spirit, like the Galatians 5 thing, the overflow of the Spirit in us, and pruning and growth and fruit and patience.
Does nerd
CE.
words and yes, what's the word? Homophone. Does that play well on a podcast?
We're gonna find out. I know that fact.
If they can't see it spelled out, if it's with a T or a C, do I have patience with my patients?
Ooh, that's exactly right. That's good. How do your patients affect your patients? We can do it both ways. We can play this. Okay.
Did we lose everybody right there?
Maybe.
We're having fun.
That's right. We're silly.
And everybody
Silly's
else is
coming
like,
out. They're all like, or they're diving in deeper because they're like, ooh, yes. Okay.
So now I'm listening better now. I'm hearing the word patience that you're now using. So can you ask that question one more time?
How did I have viewed you as a patient man, not an ortho patient? How has running your own business, I'll say, increased your threshold of patience, or maybe challenged your what I experience patient nature of you?
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's go with fruit of the Spirit.
Okay.
Patience.
Okay.
Maybe that's something I was gifted or blessed with. Is patience an emotion, or is that a skill that you can learn? Is it something you can improve? Well, if you look through the list of fruits of the Spirit, I do feel I was blessed with patience.
Okay.
Maybe that comes from, it's difficult as a physician. We hear somebody talk, we look at their x-ray. It's hard you want to jump to a conclusion. Hey, I know your problem. That may be psychiatry, business. Hey, can I interrupt? I'm just going to go ahead and tell you what's wrong with you. Even patience in just listening. I think it transforms relationships, bridges kind of the gap between somebody I don't know. They get a chance to tell their story. So I think having patience, I think it really helps in the field. Yes, working with residents, opening the door, walking in, meeting somebody for the first time, trying not to jump to conclusions, hear their side of the story.
Yeah.
People have certainly had patience with me. I think that it comes along with, probably helps to have another fruit of the Spirit, to be at peace with myself. Sure helps to be able to listen to somebody, to hear their side of the story.
At peace with yourself. Okay. Keep going.
So being at peace with myself and being confident in my training of what I can offer, I think that those certainly help me to be patient with others.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm gonna row into some waters. Let's go here.
Okay.
Let's go here, Jason.
All right.
Talk to me about I'm going to use the word tension between, I'll talk about me first. Let me talk about me first. I will often convince myself that I'm being patient when I am being avoidant, because I think they can look externally the same thing. And so maybe speak to that. I'm not saying that about you. I'm saying that about me. Can you connect with that? And if so, how do you nuance or work through that, where where, because avoidance and patience can both look the same externally.
Absolutely. I'll jump in that boat with you.
Okay.
We're still on the same side of the table.
You want to say, yeah, you did move off the table. Thank you.
So I think the what I feel in my mind and what other people may perceive, it also may be different. Am I being patient with somebody, or am I just tired and just going to sit back and be passive about it?
Yeah.
Something in the workplace, if I need to address it, and is avoiding that confrontation. I'm not really a confrontational person. And
like,
so
it's not your nature.
It's
like
not
you're
my
not
nature.
combative or confrontational.
So to be passive about it, is that being patient, or is that more passive? I do think we start to throw some other words in there.
Okay.
And at some points, is it avoidance?
Yeah.
And then I can play it off as patience.
Right.
I think sometimes that would come into it. That would be on a time that I would certainly feel inside and know that would be a time when I didn't have the confidence.
Yeah.
And so externally it may appear the same, but I certainly know inside me when there's that difference.
And you, when you said confidence just then, would you correlate that with that same phrase you said earlier about the peace with yourself? Like, you kind of had those together. Did I hear that earlier?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think they go together. I think some of it, if we just talk about orthopedics, I'm confident in my education. I'm confident in my training. I'm confident in what I can provide, and I'm at peace with myself. I think that comes together as a package where I can sit there comfortably, listen to somebody that may have a different viewpoint.
Yeah.
It may be different from my background, how they present it. I might even disagree with part of it, but I can sit there quietly because I'm still confident. I don't have to interrupt or kind of make my narrative on theirs. Avoidance would be, maybe I don't have the skills or know enough knowledge for that.
Yeah.
So sometimes procrastination pays off for me, and sometimes it backfires.
By pays off, you mean it just goes away eventually?
Hey, that would be a bonus at times.
Yeah, I haven't had that experience. I feel like it just builds up and gets me later.
That's most of the time. You got to hang on to that 1%.
Yeah, keep chasing the 1%.
Remind our spouse that one time it paid off.
Yeah. Yeah, Kirsten doesn't ever believe me on that. Okay, so let's bring, we've talked about the fruit of the Spirit. We've talked about, and you've talked about your faith, and we've talked about these different elements of your Christian faith, which you are clear with, and I have admired the way I've seen you pray with people, care about people, talk about it. How does your faith specifically play into the spaces that we've just been talking about? Because we've been talking about how those affect your business. We've been talking about how they play out even with patients, with TS at the end, right? We've been talking about, in teaching with residents and dealing with me, other reps. How does your faith affect these things?
I think it really helps as a physician if I'm genuine. We'll go back a little bit. I'm passionate about orthopedics.
Yep.
I love it. I want people to see that passion and the way I love to talk about it, my Christianity, to be the same. If I'm a real person, I think patients can feel that in the clinic. And so I think if they trust me, I do not have to go overboard in proclaiming my faith where it doesn't seem real to them. I think having it kind of evolve in a more natural way.
Yeah.
I think medical missions, we mentioned that.
Yeah.
I think people that are hurting or in pain kind of gives you a window of opportunity or a door of opportunity where people are maybe a little more receptive. So I love the platform that I'm just in a position it's easy for me to talk about. I wish it was in every part of my life. I'm not as comfortable door knocking. Just bringing it up to somebody in a coffee shop. That's not the type of relationships and conversations I really am comfortable with.
Yeah.
But to know somebody and to really get to speak with them, they know who I am. I think an easy segue that I've enjoyed that I love to build on is just before somebody goes into surgery, to be able to float out and just say, do you have somebody praying for us today? And just an easy, kind of non-offensive way to gauge where they're at. And if they're like, oh yeah, we got the prayer team fired up this morning, I mean, hey, there's a green light.
Yeah.
I can say whatever I want to about religion and the relationship with them. If somebody says, no, I don't think so, or they sound confused by the question,
Yeah.
I can gauge whether that's an opportunity. Do you want somebody to, would you like me to pray for us? Just so it's a unique opportunity.
The one really cool, and that's a I think how you described it as a non-offensive, so it's a safe way, right, to be able to try to connect with a person and bring that aspect. What really caught me there, Jason, was the us part, because that's I think that's novel or new to me in a healthcare setting for the physician to look at a patient and say, can I pray for us? As opposed to, can I pray for you? Like, can, you know, and cover you and, you know, people. So maybe unpack the us aspect and where that came from or why, because that's really cool. I love it, but I don't know that I've picked that up before.
I can, boy, I can use prayers.
Amen. Amen. Me too.
Anybody, all the time. So I'm always looking for extra prayers.
Come on now.
The, you know, patients in surgery, they're in a vulnerable spot.
Yes.
They're going to go to sleep and they have little to no control over what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I think for to let them know where I am for this, who guides me.
Come on.
One of my favorite sayings for them is, and it came from, we'll go back to Nigeria.
Okay.
Their ambulance for the hospital is a Volkswagen Beetle, old rusty thing, bouncing through dirt roads in the jungle.
Okay.
On the side of it is the hospital motto. I got to give them credit, to Nigerian Christian Hospital.
Okay.
And on the side of it, it says, we address the wound, God heals. And I just thought, you know, I can tell patients, I can talk for 45 minutes what I believe, why I believe it. And I thought, man, that one sentence, that little motto summarizes basically everything I would want to tell you about my practice, about me as a person, how I treat people, and how I view orthopedics. So I'll tell people, you know, you've got a broken bone. I can put plates and screws in there. I can pull these bones together and pull them really close, but I've never healed anybody. And so I just want them to let them know I'm working really hard on you, where I'm trying to help, but the healing comes from a different place. Yeah. And I truly believe that.
What a I think a very clear and cool way, the fact that you're willing to share that with your patients. You're willing to create space for that conversation to happen. It's not forced. You're not like driving it at them, but to create the space for it is, I think, a very practical and clear way at your business and at your calling to integrate your Christian faith and create that dialogue. And so thank you for sharing that with me and with the listeners, because that's, we address the wound, God heals it.
Yeah. Perfect.
We address the wound, God heals
Whatever marketing person in Nigeria came up with that
for the win
and stenciled it on the side of the Volkswagen Beetle.
Yeah.
For me, perfection.
Yeah. Had that heart, right? Had that heart and then just expressed it that way. That's good. That's good.
You want to know if it's ever backfired on my talk? Not often.
Yes, I want to know. Tell me. Give the reality, because people are going to hear that and be like, oh, cool, great way to do it.
Yeah.
And think, well, then that creates wonderful conversation or great moments every single time.
It does usually let me, I say I float that out there.
Yep.
It gives me a gauge on where they're at.
Yeah.
Some people want to talk about it for a while. Some people just say yes, and then they have a medical question, and that's where it's left.
And some people, maybe the other end.
I had somebody, doesn't happen often, but he sat there. I asked him my standard question: do you have somebody praying for us today?
Yeah.
And he said, boy, I hope we don't need
prayer.
My surgery's not hinging on that being successful.
Wow.
And it kind of caught me back, because people in Oklahoma are typically, you know, of
thank
course.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, it kind of, and I said, what do you mean? He said, I mean, I hope we don't need a prayer for this surgery to work. And being in practice for myself, I'm allowed to say a few things. I may lose a patient every once in a while. But I was still kind of stumbling backwards, catching my balance. And I said, well, I don't think you know how this world works. And so we kind of smoothed it over. I told him, I'm going to do a great surgery for you and all this. And my PA later said, hey, I had a patient come in, took his stitches out, and he was really frustrated that you were going to pray for him before surgery. And I was like, oh, man. Oh, yeah, I remember that story.
Like, oh, yeah, I got it. Yeah. I didn't prime you. My bad.
And I said, oh, yeah, I forgot about that guy, or forgot to tell you about that. And he said, I took his stitches out, and he said he was offended by that, and he's never coming back. And I said, oh, well, I'm glad the prayers worked, and he did so well that he doesn't need to come back for any more care. So can we turn that into a success story?
Yes.
Because when he went to sleep, not saying any names for HIPAA stuff, but
Sure.
when he went to sleep, I'm washing my hands, scrubbing in, and I could still say a prayer for him.
Yeah.
And so
And bring your best and do the clinical surgery. And
even if he didn't want it. Sorry,
Yeah.
I got to pray for me at least. Threw it in there for him,
and never came back.
He never came back. So that must have been one good, powerful prayer. He healed up and didn't need any more help.
He never came back. But I think those stories are essential, Jason, because, one of the principles that we talk about for integrating your Christian faith that we have in our integrated business guide is the principle of obedience. And one of the things we talk about is that our job is to be obedient in the way that we feel called to integrate our Christian faith into our small business. And that is not I take a step and I get something in return. It's not like a transaction where every time I ask a patient, like I pray over them, it's a great result. Or every time I go make this choice of obedience, I get something wonderful back. It oftentimes, I shouldn't say oftentimes, sometimes, who knows, the outcomes aren't ours. It just is, I take a step and somebody may not be happy with me. A patient might be like, oh, I hope this, now all of a sudden doubting your surgical skills because they are viewing is somebody praying for us today question as almost a sign of weakness. That's how I experienced him saying it, like, well, dude, you get your hands going. Yeah. You know what I mean?
It could be, for sure.
I think that's a very valuable second story to follow up on the thing that I was even praising as like a practical way to integrate your faith is that doesn't mean you're always going to get an earthly positive outcome. You know what I mean? Like we just don't know that, but that's not our job. Our job is to be obedient.
That's right.
And so thank you for sharing the second story in addition to the first ones, which I was loving as well. Jason, you were a professing Christian prior to, I would say at the start of your practice, like so when you founded the business.
Correct.
True statement. Okay. How has the application of your faith? So you give us some examples. Now maybe just talk about the evolution. The maturation. How do you now apply your faith differently than you did back then?
Yeah, I think I was very fortunate in my time with St. Anthony's as an employed physician because it was kind of groundbreaking with their marketing department when they talked about prayer. I think it was a holiday Christmas advertisement, kind of a campaign where
what was the phrase? I'm trying to remember the Saints in Action phrase.
Yes.
And there was the photo like where they would hold hands and they were in the OR.
Table.
It was ICG. I think it was Insight Creative Group. My friend Eric Joyner was the one who
He's gonna be mad if we don't remember exactly how he phrased that.
But I'm gonna remember. We're gonna remember it was awesome and they did it. Yeah. Okay.
And I think even some hospital CEOs at other hospitals and businesses were like, "Whoa, that was a big step."
Oh, interesting.
To actually announce on a commercial, public TV about prayer and the power of prayer. So I was fortunate to be at a place at St. Anthony's Hospital as that was coming out to have a employed position at a hospital that prayer is okay.
Yeah.
They also have a family practice residency that is faith-based.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Proclaims it. I do not... somebody can fact check this. I do not believe they get all the healthcare dollars
because of that
fact. But they pray in the morning as a group, and so that was how it was originally founded. And so there were things going on like that at the hospital, which was a fantastic place for me and a platform kind of foundation.
Okay.
So for me, talking about prayer and doing those things was not seen as, ooh, is he out of line?
Yeah.
It was actually promoted and advertised.
Okay.
That's not why I did it, but I had a employer that was friendly to that.
Yeah.
So that was a great way to start. When I look at my life, how do I continue? I think as a business, they also have to be careful. It's okay to pray and talk about prayer, but how far can I go talking about my faith? When does it become unacceptable by the employer?
Yeah. How do you navigate that line? Right. Yeah.
And so to have my own practice, I'm maybe unfortunately my own HR department, CEO. It's my decision. If I lose some patients because of my belief, my faith, something like that, that's my business decision. I don't have somebody looking at me talking about numbers and those kind of things. So it's kind of nice in a way to have my own business that I can do that.
Yeah.
When I look at how can I expand it kind of within the framework that I'm comfortable, still being genuine and authentic in how I present myself is, pushing myself. What's my next step? If I'm very comfortable to ask somebody, do you have someone praying for us? Would you like me to pray for you? For some people, maybe that's not a big step.
Yeah.
That's a natural progression. I do see it as a natural progression, but that's a bigger step from my comfort zone.
Yeah.
I'm very comfortable saying what I say now, but when I'm like, okay, how do I go to the next level with it?
Yeah.
And so that's probably my goal. That's the next step I'd like to take is to offer that more.
Yeah.
It's one thing in a restaurant bow and say my own prayer. It's one thing when I'm scrubbed in at the sink, close my eyes, look down for a little bit. Nobody has to know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But to pray out loud for somebody, they may really appreciate it. They may want that, and my comfort level doing that. And that's kind of where I'd like to push and go next, push myself a little bit.
Well, I admire your courage to be willing to even, just for yourself, say it on a recording, because then future you is going to listen to it and be like, because I've done that before. I'm like, I'm going to do this. And I listen to it later and I'm like, ooh, I got to call myself out on that one. I haven't got there yet.
Yeah.
But
was that 3 years ago? That was my goal.
Yeah. And I'm also working on the whole not calling myself out. I heard a phrase yesterday, call myself up, not out. So I'm even working on that lens. So maybe take me to, I've kind of got two parts out of that last thing you said that I want to ask about. The first is what are the rhythms, what are the disciplines, what are the relationships in your life that lead to an awareness of like what another or next step might be for you? Like where does that come from? And then how do you process said idea or potential new thing to do? And again, specifically when we're talking about integrating your faith at your business, like how do you process that? Like, do you pray about it for a long time? Do you talk to your wife? Do you have a group? Like, how do you write it out? So where does it come from? And then how do you process it?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I'm very fortunate. My story, I come from a foundation of a family, parents, grandparents that were believers and in church and grew up with that. So I have kind of the advantage of that's my foundation that I started with.
Yeah.
I admire people in their passion that love stories of atheists that read the Bible, convert themselves, trying to disprove it. I mean, man, talk about people that are passionate. And so on one hand, I love my foundation. Gives me stability, but do I have just the absolute passion and love for it that I just want to tell everybody, like, this is the greatest thing. I've just discovered this. I love seeing that excitement in others. Yeah. So I have the foundation, and I'm so thankful for that. As I build my group and not just my practice as a physician, one thing about being in practice by myself is I'm kind of out there by myself for decisions. who holds me accountable if I'm at the top of my pyramid over here.
Yeah.
So to have a spouse to help and keep me in check.
Yeah.
One of the things at church this morning had a men's breakfast that we've tried to do on a routine business or a routine schedule to get together.
Yeah.
Really starting out just to build friendships, and then, you have somebody that you can confide in, a little accountability.
Yeah.
Just getting to know each other better. What do you pray about?
Yeah.
To be honest, at church and in Bible class, superficial, hey, how are you doing? And I may really care, but we don't have time to talk about it.
Yeah.
And so I think I'm even trying to add to that collection of people that my foundation, keep it strong, hanging out with people with the same, I love different ideas, but other people that have the same foundation, I have to have that as strength. If I'm always out there countering people, I think there's security in my foundation, and then I enjoy branching out from that.
Yeah. You also, correct me if I'm wrong here, and I'm using a little bit of insider knowledge, a little insider trading. You have a coach, like either a business coach or that also has a faith lens to it as well. Is that accurate?
That's accurate.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that's been, you think, you look at professional golfers and they're great. They have a swing coach.
Yep.
Everybody has coaches, and then you sit there and you think, wait, why was I trying to do this on my own? So it's nice to have somebody to help with your blind spots,
That's a good word.
to help you out. And so, yes, in addition, building that team around me that's helpful, to have a coach to do that.
Yeah.
The coaches put together a group of businessmen, all with a Christian faith. We're not from the same church.
Ooh, I like that.
But to go out and spend time, we go out to national parks.
Yeah.
Phones don't work out there.
Yes.
Just spending one-on-one time with people, and it's really by design. It was pretty, I'll say, just pretty genius on an intentional. The group we bring together to have people that are like-minded, even in their position of work. We're not all physicians. I may be the only physician in our group, but to have people that are at the top of their game, and it's a delicate balance because typically American males at the top of their game are going to be confident, puff out their chest.
The standard alpha type A. Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm sure you put a bunch of alpha males in a locker room and it doesn't go too well. So it's been very intentional by the group, and it's been life-changing for me as well.
Very cool.
And so I'm just so glad to be a part of that. And now some of the smaller groups that we're in, I'm just making them intentional in the same way.
Yeah.
So, yes, I need a lot of help with groups, other men, Christian men.
Yeah.
Because out there blazing a trail on your own is not the safest way to go.
So I heard a couple different things. I want to active listen on a listener and viewer. I want to make sure we're capturing these together because I think there's gold in it, Jason. And so if I miss these, correct me. Okay,
sure.
So this is me listening. So one is you kind of talked about, even as you were processing your next step, like where I love the way you said, like you were talking about the prayer at Saints and how it was like it was a foundational piece, and then how you were continuing to do it, and then where you wanted to go. And so in the where you wanted to go, so the one step you saw in front of you, like tweaking that prayer a little bit, you were very vulnerable with us. That's courageously authentic the way you shared, where you were like, it may not be a big step to a lot of people, but it is for me. But you have clarity as to what it is. You're inviting other people into it. And so the thing, I think a great lesson there, again, integrating your faith, is that sometimes the next step might seem small, but really it's just the next step. And it's this process and journey that you're going on. And so while it might seem small to someone else, it's a big deal to you. And so take whatever that step is, whether it's a big leap of faith or this seemingly small step that is also a big leap of faith.
That's right.
Right. So just take the one little small step that's right in front of us. That is a very practical way. And everyone's going to be different because your next step is different than my next step, because something that's natural to me might be unnatural to you, and something that's natural to you is very unnatural to me. Right. Okay. So that was one thing I heard. Am I got that one?
Perfect.
Okay.
Kind of goes back to patience.
Oh,
Was I
snap.
Was I gifted with that? For me, if you see that in me and recognize it, I think I'm fortunate. I think I'm blessed because that's not something that I truly sit down and think I'm having to work at this.
Yeah.
So for me, the fruits of the Spirit, I got a list I need to work on.
Yeah.
Patience, I could always get better, but I do believe that was a gift that I'm blessed with because I don't have anxiety sitting there doing that. So I like how you said, yes, for some people, it may be just a easy, small step.
Right.
Like, that's no big deal.
Yeah.
I recognize the anxiety. For me, that's putting myself out there more for sure. It's a bigger step.
Yeah. Giving yourself grace in taking that step, like in the process of getting there. Okay. That's good. The second thing I heard you talked about, and I think this, listener and viewer, if you are starting your own business, right? So you're, an entrepreneur or you're the head of a small business, there is the risk that not having that accountability or healthy accountability relationships in life. You use the word groups, accountability. And so being intentional, and I think you also use the word like-minded. So finding people who also have a desire, right, to follow Christ genuinely, finding those people and having them in your life. Curating them, being intentional with them, bringing them in, sharing with them, like all those pieces. As again, I heard that as a very essential and critical piece towards being able to do this well. Because if you're at the top and it's a small business and you're not trying to build your practice to like take over world domination, I don't think that's your objective, and I haven't heard that from you.
Not.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you're not trying to scale it to some level, so you're going to be the number one guy at your practice.
Yes.
And it is exactly what God called it to be and you to lead it. And so then it's like, wait, but I'm in charge and I don't have a peer because you're not in a group with other physicians. Like you're the only physician in your group. And so if you're an entrepreneur, if you're an owner, that could be for you also a risk point.
Absolutely.
To not have those relationships. And so intentionally find those people, your spouse, maybe somebody who's ahead of you on the road, like a life coach, other peers who might be in other professions who also have, again, like-minded. Is that a good active listen?
Absolutely. Super important. The team I put around me.
Ooh, team. Yeah. Team. It's a great word. Jason, this has been rich and fun for me. This has been rich and fun. Do you have any final thoughts, stories, patience? You can pick which one that you want to talk about or share today.
Yeah. Well, for one thing, I thought I was going to get to bring my own intro music, and I don't know that you played that. That did not sound like Eye of the Tiger.
It's the Eye of the Tiger. Oh, that's not what you wanted? You don't want me to sing it?
I like the beat as it comes in. That's it just builds. And so you caught me off guard with the salsa feel.
That's right. Yeah, we got to dance.
Thank goodness I listened to Eye of the Tiger in the truck on the way here.
That's right.
I talked about a prayer part that did not, that interaction. A story I just love on a gentleman. I told him I started it out and I said, it's one of my favorite prayers that a patient said. So I started out and I said, the typical, do you have someone praying for us? He must have heard, will you pray for us?
Okay.
So he just starts praying.
Come on now.
And I'm trying to get my surgery cap off, You're
trying to, you're like, oh, that caught me off guard. Okay. All right, here we go.
Scramble mode. He's in his prayer. So I'm standing there. It's just the two of us. He's in his surgery bed, ready to go back to surgery. And
has he had versed at this point? Like, are we are we loosened up?
He loosens up during the prayer.
Oh, yes.
So he starts out and he typical church stuff. So I know he's been in a church.
Okay. Yeah. It's got the language.
He's got all the language down. Thank you for Dr. Emerson's education. Oh, no. Bless his eyes, bless his hands through this surgery. It is the typical stuff I would expect. Then he says it starts to go a little bit.
Yes.
And he says, God, I know that you have chosen Dr. Emerson to do this surgery because you don't even need him. If you wanted to heal me on your own, you could.
Come on now.
But you have chosen this doctor.
Come on.
And he's building steam. It's getting louder. And he said, in fact, God, during this surgery, if he ain't doing it right, you bump him out of the way and you do it yourself. And I laughed out loud and opened my eyes to look at him. And he looked at me and said, "Was that too bold?" And I said, "No."
You're like, that's
No,
great.
that's my belief. That's from
That's
from the Volkswagen.
Oh.
We address the wound, God heals. And he just, probably one of my favorite prayers of all time.
That's so
If
good.
he ain't doing it right, you bump him out of the way and you just do it yourself.
Come on. I love the faith. I love the faith that man had.
I'm just part of the team.
Oh, that's right.
I try to, I think if I put the bones closer together, I feel like I'm maybe helping God out a little bit, make it a little easier. But, in reality, he doesn't need me either. So.
Great story. And I love the fact that because you were willing to enter into that space, God used that moment to create it. Oh, and the faith of that man, which I know made you smile and gave you confidence even more, right? You talked about the a peace with yourself and a confidence. Think that patience, prayer, and faith, I believe gave you more of a peace with yourself, knowing God made you and his role in the dynamic and all of that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And for prayers, that was not too bold. That's probably the truth.
That's it. Well, Jason, thank you. This has been rich. This has been fun. Early morning laughter together. I love it. Early morning laughter and prayer and joy. And so we've talked about it multiple times. So I'm going to read some Galatians 5 to close us out.
Okay.
I'll read some Galatians 5 to close us out.
Perfect ending.
But thank you. Thanks again, man, for sharing your time, sharing stories, and bringing to invest in all of our listeners and the viewers who are trying to do faithfully, trying to integrate their faith into their business. So thank you.
I know it's important to you. It's important to me. And I'm glad we got to do this together this morning.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay. Galatians 5. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self-control. And against such things there is no law. Listeners, viewers, thank you for joining us this week. And until we are together again next week, choose life. Thanks for tuning into our show. If you want to learn more about how you can integrate your faith into your business, download our integrated business guide for free by clicking the link in the show notes below. Thanks again for joining us, and we'll see you next time.